Archbishop Curtis here. I'm so happy to be able to address Serrans. My connection with Serra began in 1950, which is 74 years ago, when I left a small town in Eastern Oregon to go to the seminary in Seattle. I was a college freshman, and when I got there, I found out that I had an uncle there on my mother's side by the name of Steve Selak. And after I'd been there a month or so, he called me one day and said he was coming out with a group of businessmen who had formed a club of some seminary to promote vocations, and they called it the Serra Club. So he came out, and even though he wasn't one of the founders, he had joined soon afterwards, and he introduced me to two of the founders of Serra in Seattle. And so that was the beginning of my connection with Seattle. I was ordained in 1958, and in the Diocese of Baker, Oregon, I had served as a chaplain of a hospital and as a pastor and as vocation director for the diocese. Then in 1970, I was asked to come to the seminary in Western Oregon, Mount Angel Seminary, to set up a pastoral training program. And in 1972, they made me president rector of the seminary, because I had worked I was one of the authors of the second edition of the American Bishops' paper for vocation preparation. Anyway, so then that was 1976. 1993, I come here to Omaha as Archbishop, and soon after, I was appointed Episcopal Advisor for Serra International. One of the earliest meetings I had was in Mexico because the president of Serra International then was Mexican. And the discussion centered around what to do with the request from American Serrans to set up their own national organization. And there was some concern about that and consternation because there was some fear that since most of the Serrans were Americans and most of the money that was raised for Serra was from Americans, that this might not be so good in the long run, might be divisive. But anyway, the boards voted to let America set up their own organization. And they joined with Canada to call it USAC, the first national organization of Serra that was set up in conjunction with Serra International. They asked me to be the advisor for USAC, but I said, and I did at first, but then I said, well, I see some differences and conflicts here, and I'll stick with Serra International. Traveled a lot the world for Serra International, and that was an important time in my life. I think that vocation, we learn. I gave a talk. At one time, I was Episcopal Advisor or Episcopal Director of Vocations for the National Church, and I talked to the bishops. And I said, this is a changing time. When I grew up, we had sisters and priests that encouraged us always about vocations, and it was a couple of those nuns that really helped me make up my mind to head towards priesthood. But the times were changing, and we didn't have the sisters and all the priests. And I said, if we're going to have to depend on the laity to help us with vocation ministry, because it's declining. And I'm convinced that if we have strong, good lay people who are willing to promote vocations, that it'll make a difference. And that's why Serra, in my mind, was so important. And my uncle, by the way, who lived to see me Archbishop of Omaha and to see me as Episcopal Advisor for Serra International, was so excited that I had followed through with that initial contact that I had with Serra through him in Seattle. The vocation ministry that is so important for the church depends so much now on lay people who are willing to promote vocations, to invite young people, men and women, to think about a vocation to priesthood, religious life, and to encourage vocations. When I was Archbishop, we set up the Institute for Priestly Formation here in Omaha to work with seminarians in the summer to fill in some things that I think, and we decided was missing in ordinary seminary formation, because it's all the agenda is so heavy in terms of academics and pastoral training, and that was spiritual renewal, spiritual conversion, spiritual life, deepening the spiritual life. And so we work with seminarians in the summertime, over 100 each year, from all over the country and even some internationally, to help them in terms of the development of their own spirituality. And so much of that program of IPF was encouraged and supported by Serrans. Serra is important here in Omaha. We have 2 Serra clubs. And some of the Serrans that we have here are some of the leaders of Serra, both Serra International and USA. Tim and Sally O'Neill have been, Tim was past president of Serra International. Sally is president of one of the local clubs and have been so supportive of Serra. And our Serra clubs are strong, and they're doing a great deal of work and help to promote vocations. And our numbers are going up because of this effort here in Omaha. So Serra International, Serra National, it's been a part of my life for 74 years. And I'm glad that I was able to give some advice and help to Serra. I served 2 terms as Episcopal advisor for Serra International. And it was a pleasure for me. And I went to different countries for Serra. I spent time in Australia, for instance, encouraging Serra and encouraging vocations. I went to different parts of the world on behalf of Serra, and I met marvelous people. And I think that it was just a wonderful experience for me. In 1996, we had the Serra International Convention in Genoa, Italy, and it was a great turnout. And we were supposed to all fly to Rome to meet the Holy Father and to talk about Serra with him. And but typical in Italy, they went on strike, and so the flights were canceled, and we had to hire buses to get us all there. And I made sure everybody got on the bus before I got on. And when we got into the Holy City and the arena where we were to meet with Pope John Paul II, God, they were nervous because they thought that I was supposed to do the introduction and introduce them. But anyway, even though I was a close time, they ushered me right up to the center, and I greeted the Holy Father and talked to him about Serra, and then I introduced him to all the officers of Serra International. The president that year was Eric Selly from London, a wonderful man, and he was the first one I introduced. This is a picture here of me introducing the Holy Father to the Serrans. The first one was Eric Selly from London, and the Holy Father was very happy to meet him and meet all the officers and to meet as many of the people as we could. That was what turned out to be a marvelous experience for us. So anyway, Serra, me, Omaha, wonderful. It's been a wonderful experience and a wonderful ride for me. I've been a bishop now 46 years, and a great deal of my energy and time and joy has been working with seminarians and with Serra. So God bless you all, and I'm willing to take any questions that you might have.
Good. Thank you, Archbishop.
Thank you, Archbishop. That's a great history. I thought I knew everything about Serra, but I just learned a whole bunch of things I didn't know. So thank you.
You're welcome.
We do have a couple of questions. The first one is a question, Archbishop, you have an unusual historical perspective of Serra. And you've seen the challenges that we've gone through. The most recent one has been this pandemic. Yeah. And it seems to me that the vast majority of our clubs are charging out of the gate, trying to accomplish the Serra mission right now and doing quite well at it. But we still have some clubs, more than a handful, usually small, but not always, who are challenged by lack of membership, members that are too old, inability to recruit younger members, and an unwillingness by some of the Serrans to step up into leadership positions. And I wonder if you might have any words of advice or encouragement to those clubs that are still struggling.
Well, you know, I think it's important to work with the local priests and work with the local vocation director and to put the information together and the data together on the need. And that this is a mission that the Holy Father, John Paul II, was very strong about, and also Benedict, that lay people had to take responsibility for vocations. And if they want to have priests in their parishes in the future, they have to work at it. And they need to encourage younger people to, and because this is such an important mission in the church, go talk to young people and explain the mission to them and get the priests, the local priest involved and the local vocation director involved and work with them. And then I think we'll begin to see, we see that here in Omaha, we see young people coming into Serra, and it's because Serrans themselves encourage others to come in and propose their names for membership. So it's a dynamic that it requires personal conversion of the present members, recognition of the importance of Serra vocations at this point, and the need for them to recruit new people for Serra so that they in turn can promote vocations.
Great comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop. Archbishop, you'll recall that when Serra started, we had two objectives, and that was the first, singularly, we picked out the fostering and affirming of religious vocations to the priesthood. Then we added, and then we had, of course, the call to holiness and growth of spiritual and Christian fellowship amongst the membership. So that gave us reasons to join or to gather twice a month, for club meetings and things of that nature. So we have those two, and then we expanded it to include specifically religious vocations to the consecrated religious life. Do you have an opinion about how the importance of adding that second, or that third rather, objective to our overall objectives, and the impact of that, and how we should maybe, since we lean mostly towards diocesan vocations as an intro into a diocese, how do we expand and support in a meaningful way religious vocations as well?
Well, there's been a sharp decline in vocations to religious life in this country, both men and women. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the incorporation of religious into the mission of the church and the mission of the diocese has to be understood and encouraged. We need young priests, young women religious, to show their love for what they're doing and to reach out to other people. Now, Serra can help with that because Serrans in their own parishes know the young people that they should be talking to, that show an interest, that have some faith, that have some love for the church. And the religious themselves need to demonstrate that it's a joyful thing to be working full-time for the Lord and serving his people, or in a life of prayer and penance, whatever mission they have in their own religious communities. So we have to work at it, but they have to help us. They have to be able to explain their mission to the people in general. And Serra can help them promote this both by the written word and by word of mouth and by programs to say how important it is for our parish, for our diocese, and for the church that we have vocations to religious life. It's a combination of efforts both by the religious themselves to promote themselves and to show that they're part of the mission of the church that's important. Yeah. It's part of the mission, part of the work of the parish to promote that. And Serra, which is the main arm of the church for vocations, has to help them with this project, to help them explain themselves, help them reach out to young people and encourage young people. And if they do, and we work together, then I think there'll be an update in a change in the development of vocations in the church.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
John, do you have any questions?
Yes. I'm wondering, because you have such a deep history with Serra, and I will carve out the the 1980s decision to allow women into Serra, taking that out of the equation, what do you think has been the most significant change in Serra throughout all of your time as, you know, a seminarian, a priest, and a bishop?
Well, I've seen that leadership, if you get lay leaders, men and women, who are committed to the cause and who are strong, good leaders. Now, that's been one of the blessings here in Omaha, I can tell you. We have produced marvelous leaders in Serra, both at the national and the international level, and here at the local level. And that's what gives Serra its strength. You need some strong, good leaders who are committed to the cause, who have leadership skills, who are willing to sell it to others, and to help them understand how important this is to the mission of the church. I think when you look around the country and see that some states, some dioceses, there's a decline in vocations, there's an urgency to this task. And I think both men and women of Serra working together and at the local level and taking some responsibility for national and especially for Serra International, from my perspective, that's what's going to make the difference.
Okay. Archbishop, in 1951, Serra was aggregated to the Holy See and through formally connected, and you remember that. And part of the benefits, if you will, of that, in addition to our understanding that we've got a direct universal responsibility to vocations because of that aggregation, that it's worldwide, not just, you know, one single place. The other part about it, there were spiritual benefits that were attached to membership in Serra at that time, in the way of indulgences and you know, different ways that the church manifested its the importance of that relationship. It seems to me that over the years that we've maybe forgot to talk about that element, and I'm speaking specific. And how would you explain to a Serran today, or a prospective Serran today, a prospect, about the benefits, the spiritual benefits of belonging to Serra, to an individual, to a family, to their family, etc.?
Well, you know, the emphasis of the Second Vatican Council was on the laity and the role of laity in the life of the church. And it seems to me that lay people who are serious about their faith and who have a mission, like Serra, that they need to develop a spirituality along the lines of outreach and prayer and personal kind of demonstration of faith. You know, we encourage our seminarians and our priests that if you're going to survive and you're going to develop and grow, you have to have a strong spiritual life. You have to know Jesus personally, and you have to work at it daily. Daily prayer is very important in every mission in the church. And if you can get Serrans to realize how important their own personal prayer is, and also to pray together as a club and as a group, and to share that kind of joy and enthusiasm that comes with knowing the Lord personally, because he's gentle, but he's firm in terms of trying to get us to live as his disciples and to share the good news. Mm-hmm. Sharing the good news. This is what's going to encourage young people to look at priesthood and religious life. This is what is going to encourage Serrans, people in the parish, to look at Serra, because you have a spiritual base, you have a program of development of spirituality, and you have to work at it, just like I have to work at it. That's why the IPF for the summer on spirituality get these seminarians together. It deepens their commitment, their experience of the Lord and their commitment to him, and then it makes them enthusiastic about the mission that they're entering. Same thing with Serra. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be able to be missionaries for the church, when John Paul talked about Serra as the vocation arm of the church, he was serious about that, because he knew that if lay people would gather together and form an organization that had an emphasis on vocations. And if their own spirituality developed so that they could do that with enthusiasm and joy because they understood what it meant to be close to the Lord, then things begin to happen. Yes, I agree. You have to work at spirituality. You need to work at it as a club and develop ways for people to be able to come together and pray together and to think deeply about the mission of the church.
Wow, great. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions? Archbishop, Mike, you're on mute, and maybe you want to wrap this up.
Yeah, John, did you have a question? Were you going to tell me?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the comment about leadership. Do you think it is Serra that develops and forms these leaders, or do you think it's that leaders are attracted to Serra because of its mission and because of the importance of Serra?
Well, I suppose it's both, but I think it has a lot to do with the attraction. I think that Serra has a way of developing leadership among people in surprising ways. But my experience has been that the people who've given us the best leadership were just natural leaders. And when you can get them interested, when you got a person that has leadership qualities, both in terms of their own mental ability, but also their sense of church and their sense of the traditions of the church and the value and the importance of the church. When you put those factors together, and then you have somebody with natural leadership abilities, then you got something.
Yeah.
And I think that's been our strength here in Omaha, to be honest with you. I've been so impressed with the lay people here in this archdiocese, especially the kind of leadership that's surfaced in every level. It's just been marvelous.
Yeah. Archbishop, I'm going to build on that. Thanks for asking that question, John. And I'm going to try to quote reference a predecessor of yours in the role of Episcopal moderator, and that would be Cardinal Stritch.
Yes.
And in those early days after the aggregation, one of the articles he wrote, he said, they asked the question, or he was responding to the question, how big do you think Serra should get? And so he said, Serra's not for, I'm going to use my own words, I'll try to be true to his intent, but basically that Serra really shouldn't be looked at a large organization, that he really is looking for a smaller, more concentrated leadership efforts, in that it's not, that he's looking for a good leadership component. And then it's not necessarily for everybody, but it needs to look at itself as leaders in the field of vocations, that we invite others, other organizations, other people to join us in vocation activities at the parish level and diocesan level, et cetera. But not everybody has to be part of Serra. It's just like there's a calling to Serra that's unique to it in a sense. And so any comments or thoughts about that?
Well, I see here in Nebraska, for instance, that Serrans have worked with the Knights of Columbus. The Knights have been very, very interested in supporting vocations, and they see the value of Serra. And so working with the Knights of Columbus, for instance, it's had a positive effect on the mission. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think Serra is for everybody. I think Serra is for those who are generally interested in promoting vocations and want that as a mission, as a vocation. It is a vocation to work for vocation, to encourage people to think about priesthood and religious life, to encourage seminarians. It's tough today, seminarians in this culture, to make the sacrifice they made, and the religious women to make the sacrifice they make to just give their lives in service to others in a culture that is inimical to religious values is not easy, and to be sometimes looked at as a kind of enemy of the public, because the culture is not supportive of religion and faith. Well, so anyway, I think. I think this is important, and I think that working with other organizations, with the vocation director, for instance, with here in like we do in Omaha, with the Newman Center that we have, that we're working with them. Sarah's working with them. They work with the priests of the Archdiocese. But I think that the leadership, you don't have to have the whole parish to be part of Serra.
Yeah.
But if you have a significant number of people in a parish who are interested in this mission and are interested in promoting vocations the way Serra has set it up, then this small kernel can have a real effect on the whole full loaf. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what Serra has to be.
Well done. Good.
Archbishop, I think we'll call it to a close with that. I want to thank you for your wonderful comments and especially for making a special effort to get the message out to our Serrans this month. So appreciate it very much and I wish you the best. Could I ask as a final request that you might give a blessing to our Serrans?
I'd be happy to do that, Mike. So, Lord, as we look at Serra and the convention in Toronto and the leadership of Greg from Omaha, we look to you for guidance and direction. We ask you to bless Serra here in Omaha and throughout the United States and throughout the world. The Serra mission of vocation, development of vocations is so crucial in our world today. I ask you to bless Serrans everywhere in the world and especially in their gathering in Toronto. I bless you all in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much, Archbishop Elden Curtis. That was wonderful. Appreciate everything you said.
God bless you.